Hey everyone, welcome back to Nadlan Forum Podcast Daily. I'm Ruby Sturt here with Leor, and look, I gotta say, today's topic just sort of punches you straight in the bank account. We're talking tariffs, the not-so-sexy word that quietly drains your wallet while you're busy worrying about avocado toast prices. Leah, did you catch the Goldman Sachs report? Apparently American businesses are picking up 51% of these tariff costs, and consumers are at 37%, while, and get this, foreign exporters, only 9%. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it's one of those things that most people just don't realize. You hear about tariffs on the news, but at the end of the day, it's not really China or somewhere else paying. It's us, the US companies, regular people. Businesses have to pay these fees when goods hit the border, then try to pass the expense on, but not all of it sticks to the consumer right away. It's like a slow leak, First it hits the businesses, it shaves the margins, and eventually, maybe in a couple contract renewals, it lands in the shopping cart of every household.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I had one of those aha moments a while ago. Classic late night online shopping. I found out the price of this wireless speaker I loved had jumped like overnight. I thought, am I losing my mind? Or did someone slap an extra $50 on here? Turns out that was tariffs doing their thing. That sent me down a full rabbit hole. I mean, tariffs, supply chains, user reviews. Suddenly, I was reading way too much economic policy for midnight.
That's the reality. We talk a lot on this show about market trends. Remember the episode on blanket mortgages where all the costs sort of stack up in new ways? Tariffs are another sneaky layer. At first, businesses might eat the cost because, they signed a contract before the tariff hit. But as contracts roll over, no one wants to take a loss forever. So they start raising prices. That's when regular people like you, Ruby, start noticing the difference at checkout.
Totally. And as the Goldman Sachs report spells out, that 37%, it's not staying there. By the end of 2025, they reckon consumers will get stuck with more than half of the total burden, which is a massive shift. Makes me wonder how much else in my day-to-day is quietly getting more expensive, just because of these policies.
And that's exactly the point where tariffs start fueling inflation. So, Goldman projects tariffs have already nudged US inflation up by almost half a percentage point in 2025. You see that reflected in the Federal Reserve's main inflation gauge, the PCE index. Up, what? 0.44 percentage points from tariffs alone? And the hits just keep coming as more costs filter through.
It's that domino effect, right? Like construction companies complain about steel prices shooting up. So every new house, every reno suddenly costs more. Automakers have to pay more for chips. So your new car or even just a repair gets pricier. Bit by bit, everyone along the line bumps up their prices to avoid getting squeezed. And before you know it, that 0.5% is baked into everything. Laya, how does this inflation actually ripple into stuff like mortgage rates or the housing market?
Yeah, so higher inflation is the big driver for the Fed to keep rates higher, or at least keep from cutting too quickly. You've got this push. The Fed wants inflation back near 2%, but with tariffs adding cost pressure, their hands are kind of tied. If mortgages were running, let's say, mid-5s or low 6s, every percentage point more inflation can keep rates elevated for longer. It's like the rate drops we discussed last week in that refi episode. Lower rates only happen if inflation looks tame, but tariffs are making it sticky.
Exactly. And higher mortgage rates don't just make homes costlier month to month. They also mess with what people can actually afford, right? Fewer buyers qualify, prices might plateau, but the cost of living keeps ratcheting up. It's so connected, but honestly, it still feels a bit abstract until you go to buy a fridge and see the sticker shock firsthand.
It's real. And for something like construction or renovations, it piles up. Developers might hold off on new projects or need to charge more in rents just to keep up with rising material costs. So even if you're not directly importing anything, you still get hit, just sort of further down the chain.
So Lior, let's talk big picture. The Fed, policymakers, all that jazz, where do tariffs leave them? They're watching inflation and debating rate cuts, but when it's being pushed up by these persistent costs, it must be a nightmare to manage.
Absolutely. The Federal Reserve is in this awkward spot. There's talk, maybe another 25 basis point cut coming soon, maybe not. They already did one this September. But sticky inflation, especially caused by things like tariffs, makes them second guess every move. And then you've got the threat of even more tariffs. If that happens, inflation sticks around, growth slows, people get less confident. That's bad for real estate investing. Capital gets expensive, demand goes soft, all those ripple effects.
Yeah, it's a house of cards, isn't it? The more tariffs you stack, the shakier it all gets. Funny enough, you mentioned earlier how some domestic producers can benefit. Like, sure, they might raise prices while foreign competitors are stuck. But if nobody's buying because confidence is down and costs are just too much, it doesn't last forever.
For sure. You know, when I first moved to New York, this was, I think, end of 2010, right away there were a bunch of new tariffs. And it was like, boom, prices for building materials jumped. Mortgage rates went up. My first year, it felt like everything I was planning in real estate had to be recalculated overnight. And a lot of investors, especially those just starting out, they don't always see these policy shifts coming until they hit your numbers directly.
And I think for anyone listening who's in mortgages, real estate, or just trying to budget for a big purchase, tariffs aren't just a political headline. They're part of the cost, weaving right into your daily life. And that's why we keep an eye on this stuff at Nadlan Forum, because when the invisible costs pile up, it can change the whole investment landscape in a blink.
Exactly. And look, we'll be watching what happens next, whether more tariffs show up or if the policymakers finally find a balance. Should be, well, interesting if nothing else. Ruby, always a pleasure talking through these real-life puzzles with you.
You too, Lior. And to everyone tuning in, thanks for letting us nerd out on tariffs and inflation with you. We'll be back soon with more stories from the wild world of real estate. Until next time, take care.
Bye, Ruby. Bye, everyone.